friends, welcome to another episode of the Bible Book by Book. In this episode, we're going to be thinking about Jesus' third way theology, his way of creating a new way, a third way of dealing with something. Often the world says the two ways of dealing with conflict is fight or flight. So either you fight something or you run away from it. And Jesus says, no, there's a third way, a different way, a kingdom way of dealing with conflict. So that's what we're going to be thinking about in today's episode. Now, I'd love to ask you, if you enjoy this episode, please give it a thumbs up, give it a share. We want to see as many people fall in love with the Bible and seeing what's happening right under the surface in Jesus' teaching. So please do share this video and give it a thumbs up and give it a like. Now, the passage I want us to look at is from Matthew chapter 5. It's a piece of the Sermon on the Mount. And it's chapter 5, verses 38 onwards. And it says this: "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him also the other. And if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if somebody forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." Now, there's 3 things that Jesus says here. One is around turn the other cheek. One is around suing, and one is about walking extra miles. Now, let me just explain. In the Middle East, 2,000 years ago, you have 2 hands, a clean hand and a dirty hand. So your dirty hand is what you did your business with, you'd wipe yourself with. Your right hand was the hand that you would eat with. And the way that you would show respect to somebody or disrespect to somebody would be how you would interact with them with your hand. Now, if you had a slave and a servant that disrespected you, you would take your right hand and you would hit them with the back of your hand. So a little bit of a slap. And this would indicate to them, you are below me, here's a slap. And you would slap them on their right cheek with the back of your hand. Now, if you said to the person, if you've just been slapped on your right cheek and you said to them, you can have the other cheek, hit me on the other cheek, they can't hit you anymore with the back of their hand. The only way of hitting you on the other cheek is to hit you with the fist, which means the back of the hand was a symbol of I have power over you. But as soon as you fight somebody with fists, you're fighting them as equals. So a Roman would slap a Jew. A master might slap a servant. So it's all about power. So when Jesus says, if somebody hits you on the right cheek, slap, then you offer them the other cheek as well. If you're going to fight me, we're going to fight as equals. So if you find yourself with somebody that's trying to have a power play over you by slapping you on your right cheek, you offer your left cheek and you say to them, no, let's fight as equals. So that's the first thing Jesus says. So the world says, here's one way, or another, and Jesus says, no, there's a third way, offer them the other cheek. You fight me as equal. The second thing that Jesus says, if somebody's suing you for your cloak, give them your tunic as well. Now, in Levitical law, to see somebody naked was a disgrace on you as a human being. Not them being naked, but you seeing them being naked. So Jesus said, if somebody's suing you for your outer garment, so you've used if you wanted to make a deal or a transaction, you borrow some money, you might lend your coat, and they would give you your coat back when you gave them money. And if you could never pay it back, they could take you to court. So essentially, in this passage, Jesus says, if somebody's suing you for your outer garment, you give them your undergarment as well. Well, if you are in the court and somebody's suing you for your coat and you take off your outer garment and your inner garment, what are you wearing? You're naked. In the Middle East, did they wear underpants? Well, no, they didn't. You would be stood in the court of law naked if somebody's taking both of your garments. Suddenly, the other person is being ridiculed. Not you for being naked, but for them for seeing you as naked. It's almost like Jesus is saying, if somebody's trying to sue you, you give them everything you've got, and then you just show them how ridiculous the power that they are having over you is. Show them that you are being dehumanized by the way that they are taking you to court. So this is one way of dealing with conflict. This is another. Jesus says, no, here's another way. Show them how ridiculous they are behaving by taking you to court for your coat. So that's slapping, your outer garment. And then the third thing in the passage, it said, if you remember, if somebody forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Now, this is wicked. The Roman Empire oppressing the Jewish people. The Roman Empire had a rule that if the army officers had a backpack, they could ask someone to carry their backpack for them. But there was a rule. The rule says that you could only carry the backpack for 1 mile. Okay. After that, that you're oppressing somebody. They know you're servant, your slave. So the Romans said you can ask somebody to carry your backpack for 1 mile, but after 1 mile, if they carry that backpack, you can be taken to court for abuse of power. So along the roads were markers. These markers marked out miles, so you knew how far that you had walked. And Jesus says, if somebody forces you to walk 1 mile, you walk with them a 2nd mile. What happens if somebody said to you, carry my backpack, and you got to the end of the mile, that 1st mile, they have power over you. The moment you step into the 2nd mile, who's the person that has power? You do. Because now you're forcing them to chase you. Give me back my backpack. Give me back my backpack. If you do this, they could have been fined and even killed by their own Romans for behaving in such a way. So the power suddenly moves from the one who's been forced to carry the backpack to the one that is now carrying the backpack and running, going, what are you going to do about it? So here we have 3 illustrations of Jesus showing it like the world's way of dealing with things is fighting or flighting. And Jesus says, no, there's a new way, there's a different way. Show people how ridiculous their power is over you by subverting it. Now, if you want to know more about this image, Walter Wink wrote a book called The Powers That Be, The Powers That Be. And he talks about all of this passage in this. If you want to know more about this, go and check out that book, The Powers That Be by Walter Wink. It's really good. It's quite short, easy to read, and will help you understand this passage and the power play going in within it. So I hope you find that interesting. I hope it's stimulated something in your mind. There's certainly a lot more that could be said about it, but not in a 5-minute video. So please do go and read a little more. Friends, I hope you found that helpful and interesting. Do give us a thumbs up, give this video a share. Grace and peace.